Hi, today we talk to a well-known Japanese scholar who brilliantly explains us the hub and spokes alliance system. Really fantastic. We also talk about the regional situation in Asia, also about Taiwan, and everything that's recently been going on in Japan. Thank you very much and welcome to the show. Great, thank you. The next question would be about your domestic arms industry. As we know, it's not really first grade. There is not much international sales, although it seems that it could be possible. So my question is, why is the situation so bad, especially since, as we just discussed, Japan is awakening, it treats its security more seriously. So how come the domestic arms industry still is kind of behind what's going on in your country? Why can't it really develop?
Yeah. Simply, Japan does not have the will and capability. In this case, I am very frustrated, but it is true. About the will. Who want to sell weapon? Who want to sell who? Indeed, for example, the Japanese government want to sell? In this case, answer is yes and no. Yes, someone understands the support countries around China to deter China's activity with Japan. Yes, these people want to sell weapons to support the military forces against China. For example, the Philippines should buy the Japanese weapon, India should buy the Japanese weapon, and it will be beneficial not only for these countries but also Japan. However, in the government, there is still pacifists who do not want to sell weapons. And even if the government officials have the will to sell the weapons, these government officials do not know how to sell. In this case, the issue of capability. And the company, how about companies? When we check the revenue of these companies, only less than 5% of the total revenue came from the defense sector in these companies. In this case, they do not have the strong will to sell weapons. Instead of this, they are worrying the reputation risk. If the common pacifist people know the company sells weapons, they feel bad, and the people do not want to buy the civil purpose product of these companies, despite more than 95% of the revenue came from this civil sector. So that is a reputation risk. So these companies give up the selling weapons instead of the increasing armed exports. So currently, thanks to Russia's aggression in Ukraine, that is one of the game changer. Pacifists is losing their trust in Japanese society. That is a good change, I think. But this is just the beginning. That is my answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to ask about Taiwan and its role in Japan's security environment. Japan is definitely very concerned about the fate of Taiwan because it affects its own security. So is there a will to cooperate with Taiwan stronger and closer? Just as a side note, it seems like Japanese government is slowly expanding its security southwards towards Taiwan, to the islands and the archipelagos close to Taiwan. So is this like a growing trend? Would we see more closer cooperation between those two countries?
Yes, closer, I think. Because you can imagine the scenario. If the China really decide to attack Taiwan, they need air and sea superiority to win. But China cannot ignore a US military base in Japan because US jets came from these bases and the threat for Chinese operation. So China need to attack these bases to win the war in Taiwan. In addition, the cutting the supply line from Japan to Taiwan is vital too. Because Taiwan needs weapons to fight. In this case, the supply line depend on the southwestern island chain of Japan.
Yes.
So U.S. military force can supply weapons through these Japanese territories. So in this case, China want to cut this supply line. Therefore, Japan cannot escape from this China's operation in Taiwan. That is why US, Taiwan, and Japan must cooperate each other, and they have already understand the situation, and they have already started to cooperate. That's what happened now. Thank you.
Thank you. My last question would be about how can Japan respond to the constant PLA interference near the Senkakus? Because there have been meetings and discussions, and they all are kind of pointless. There is no real improvement. And also the other thing is after Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, when China was blockading the island, they also shot some missiles towards the exclusive economic zone of Japan. So that is kind of an escalation both towards Taiwan and Japan. So what's your comment on that? How can Japan stand up to China, both in terms of Senkaku and also expand like this kind of threat that we saw during the blockade of Taiwan, shooting missiles towards Japan?
Okay, the small provocation, it is impossible to deter completely, but we try to deter China's territorial expansion. I have already mentioned about the pattern of the China territorial expansion, and by using the example what happened in South China Sea.
Yes.
But in this case, China tried to expand the territory when they find the power vacuum, and the power vacuum has made by the changing military balance. If so, maintaining military balance is the answer to deter China's territorial expansion. So in this case, what should I do? If currently, not only Japan, but also Australia, India, Philippines, Vietnam, Taiwan, South Korea try to possess long-range strike capabilities. 1,000, 2,000 range cruise missile or stealth fighter jet, submarine launch missiles, something like that. Why? Because if all of these countries possess the strike capability against China, China cannot ignore any front when they want to focus on one front. For example, China decide to invade Taiwan. In this case, if India possesses a long-range strike capability, China need to worry about the backside. And they share some certain budget and military asset to deter India's strike capability. And vice versa. Of course, in case of India, if China try to invade India, in this case, China need to worry about the Pacific side. Australia will possess the nuclear submarine with a cruise missile, and the conventional submarine will equipped the Tomahawk cruise missile, and it will be effective to deter China. Why? Because Australian submarine come to this area, and China worry where is the submarine, where is the missile Australia can launch. So this long-range strike capability, the many countries try to possess in this region, is one of the tactics to deter China to provoke other countries. Perfect deterrence is not exist, but this is a relatively effective way to deter China's provocation. That's why when China lands a missile and that missile is landed, the sea around the Japanese island within the EEZ, this is provocation. We cannot deter completely, but if Japan possesses the Tomahawk missile or more long-range missile, we can say if China provokes Japan, Japan can retaliate. And in this case, because of the other country has already possessed a missile, we can say we can deter China. We can attack China. That's why China should not provoke us. That is so multinational approach and strike capability based approach is our answer now.
Okay, but still, I will just one more follow-up question because that's exactly what I mean. China is provoking, pushing the envelope constantly with the EEZ, with Senkakus. You say you have the strike capability, but none of the countries really responds. So you might have the capability, you might be working on it, but it's China who's active and provoking, and all the other countries just do nothing, have talks, discussions. So that's my point. It's actually China who is on the offense, and no one stands up. So that's my question. How do you think, what would be the next step, or how can Japan counter this kind of behavior? Because there has been no reaction to it, to those provocations, just talks.
Okay, we can imagine the similar situation in the Ukraine. NATO possesses capability, but NATO provide Ukraine a weapon, but NATO do not fight directly.
Okay.
But so in this case, can Ukraine rely on NATO? The answer is still yes, because supply line is the most important part of the war. And at the same time, because NATO force is deploying the border area with Russia, Russia need to share some certain amount of the military asset and budget to deter the NATO. So indeed, even if the NATO does not fight with Russia directly, still NATO is helping Ukraine.
Yes.
So under such kind of situation, even if Japan need to fight alone and other country just talk and just show the gesture to cooperate with Japan, still these allies is very useful. China need to prepare the other country will join, and at least the possibility the other country join the war. And in this case, Japan do not need to deal with all of the China's military budget and asset. And at the same time, even if they will not join the war directly, they will support Japan by providing weapons or showing their political support. Any kind of support Japan can get, even if the direct fight hasn't happened. So that's why still the cooperation with other countries is useful. And at the same time, still, indeed, the Japanese believe anyway US will come finally because of the legal binding, and
Yes.
because if the US abandon Japan, other allies of the United States will leave from the United States. That's why to maintain US-led world order, United States must protect Japan. When they involve, maybe timing, we are worrying, if US come and from the beginning of the conflict, that is our hope, and there's a possibility to happen. But even if the US will come a little later, still we believe US will come finally, and alliance with the United States is a very effective way to deal with China. That is the current situation, so we do not worry too much about it. Still, the multilateral cooperation is a very effective way, and the US is a reliable partner.
Dr. Nagao, thank you so much for your time. It was really, really interesting. I enjoyed the conversation very much.
Thank you very much. It is an honor for me.
Thank you very much. Thank you for watching the show. Please like it, leave a comment, or share it. It helps and it means a lot to me. Thank you very much.